Good morning. There we go. What a week, right? What a week. Let's see. All right, film studies. Let's pick up where I left off. So did that one just come in? Yep. All right, let me get rid of that real quick. Alright, let's get that. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, going good. I am using a bamboo brush. Well, they call it a sumi brush, typically, but it's got a bamboo handle. I like it for the texture. Yeah, so I tend to use it a lot. It has to be natural hair though. Like I've tried some other types, and like this is from Deleter. They make a lot of stuff for like manga supplies. So, and I'm doing some. This is my morning studies. These are film studies. So this is coming from Children of Men. Got a whole page of them here. These are just kind of a warm up for me in the morning. Been doing a bunch of these lately. We're on this is 33. So, let's see up here. I've got, a lot of these. So I try to do a couple of them in the morning. And then it's a good way of studying composition, especially cinematic composition. Yeah. So yeah, these I like these. I've always liked the bamboo or the sumi brushes. They're different. Again, there's different kinds of hair, but definitely the Deleter brand I'm using. And I like using this toned paper because you can kind of leave the middle values alone. And didn't broadcast as well, stream as much this week. I was trying to get a lot of things done, mostly there. I still did this, but just didn't stream it. No, it doesn't cost that much. I mean, there's a site called jetpens.com. It's in the United States. I'm not sure where you're at, but you can get them there. They sell a lot of like Japanese stationery and drawing supplies and things like that. So they're not very expensive. This is a Kolinsky sable brush from Trekell.com. They stopped making Kolinsky sables though a few years ago. I'm not sure why. This is an old one I have. It's still doing great. So. I am actually an art professor. I teach at Virginia Commonwealth University in the Communication Arts Department. So we are on summer break. School starts up in a few weeks, though, so I got to start getting ready for that. I have a new class, actually, old class I've taught before, but haven't taught in a long time this fall. So looking forward to that. Sure, because where I've been teaching, I've only been teaching one class, and I haven't had that situation like ever before. I've been teaching like the same class semester after semester. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have a pretty good program. Lots of interesting people work in it, um, and I'm grateful that they decided to have me come here. So, all right, one more to go. Yeah, I usually try to keep the morning study about an hour. Let's see. I think this is also the same movie, if I recall. Looks like it. Yeah. But still, we can go with this one here. He's right on the third. Um, yeah, we're also working on some big changes in the program to make it even better. There's a lot of things that they should have done a long time ago, but didn't. I think there's between COVID and a number of other things, I think it's just got to be put on the back burner. But so I'll tell you about the changes it's going to bring to the program. I think it'll be really, really, really good for the students. Favorite era of art? I tend to go back to the Baroque painters. So Caravaggio, Velasquez, Michelangelo, uh, Rubens. So actually spans a pretty great chunk of time, but there's a number of things I like. I'm a big fan of the golden era of American illustration, so early 20th century with like Howard Pyle and N.C. Wyeth and Keith Cornwell. Really, actually the second generation of that, but he often gets included with it. There's a lot of things. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are worth looking at out there. So yeah, but try. There's a lot out there that's really great. So it's hard to have one. It's like I like Rococo and I like Art Nouveau. I like mid-century modern architecture. I'm not as big a fan of the decorations, but I like the architecture, a lot of the furniture. The textiles I'm not as much into, but I know people like it. So I guess they feature pretty heavy in the new Fantastic Four movie, which everyone seems to like. So that's good news for movies. Yeah, so I like a lot of that stuff. Let's see. Not brush, pen. I'm using a calligraphy nib here. It's got a flat tip. So yeah, there's a lot of things to enjoy. Yeah, those are pretty insane, right? Gothic churches. It's funny though. The name Gothic is actually an insult. It was used by the generation or two after it to kind of insult it, to talk about why the new stuff was better, because they named it for the Visigoths. Yeah, but yeah, so it's just kind of interesting that that's like the name's actually an insult, which I just thought is always kind of funny. Good morning, people coming in. Yeah, well, yeah, it's the Germanic people that came in and destroyed everything, right? Or that's what they're said to have done. So really long ad. Yeah, it was just this is for what they were called. Okay, somebody over on YouTube, that chat's not showing up, I think. Maybe it is, okay. Yeah, okay. Let's see, yeah, I use this multi-stream chat thing, so sometimes not everything shows up, but it looks like it's doing okay. I just thought I'd just double check. Make sure I don't miss anybody. So it's been a good week of focusing. I'm trying to get a bunch of things. And I have like a bunch of half-finished projects that I'm trying to get done, and some of them are like around the house projects. Like I repotted all of my most of my plants. Started getting into the plant thing during the whole time of the vid, and I think I've seen it before, but hadn't thought about it that much. But how if you set up plants with moss poles or some kind of upward growing momentum, the leaves will get much larger. Which I've read about, seen before, but hadn't thought about it. So I decided to set up a whole bunch of them this week doing that. So I spent 2 days making moss poles, which was funny. So looking forward to seeing what those do. A couple of them didn't respond very well to it. I think one of them especially, but it was a plant I split up that was overcrowded in the pot it was in. But looking to see what they do. Should get like pretty dramatically large fenestrate. Word of the day. Well, those things where like you just kind of set it up and then you just take care of it. So it's not that just setting up took a long time. And today I'm going to organize my Xterra camper project. I've got a little repair I need to make. Something got shook loose during my trip out west this summer. I need to repair. Well, it's not so much procrastination. It's just that there's a lot of things I can work on all at the same time. And then art-wise, I started a concept project, and then as part of that, I've been coming up with stories and things for it, and decided to do some comic stuff with it, see how that goes. So I've started inking those pages finally today. I penciled them probably like a month or more ago. So I'm trying to like get that timeline of production down a lot faster. Either do it as a Kickstarter, which you can kind of see, I think, in the description. I think you might have that info, or in the channel description. But if you're interested in that, when I launch that, or either do it as a Kickstarter type thing, or send it to Image as a pitch. I might do both. To get it published as a big project. So I'm trying to get a certain amount done, just because I've never really done them before. So that's kind of the big art project I'm working on. This is kind of a warm-up. And studying cinematography can be really good for improving your composition and storytelling. So I thought this would be a good kind of shift. So just a lot of kind of getting things tightened down a little bit better. Let's see, white paintbrush. You can get this white stuff here too from Jet Pens. The leader. This is white number 2. I have to keep adding water to it though, because as I use it, it dries out. So, but I'm pretty excited about the project. I think it's coming along good. And I really need to get like 20 to 30 pages done so I can really see where I'm at with it. But if you're interested, there's like a sign up link in there to put your email into a list for that. I think you might be interested. So. Probably be working on the ink, so I might even live stream some of that today, just because I've mostly caught up later this afternoon. So, but I think there's a lot of potential in it, because I was doing this whole world building project as a portfolio update, along with some skills building things, and as I'm progressing through it, we so Or if you're on Instagram, you can DM me the word book. Oops, sorry, Bosch. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's just a brush. Dog is sleeping under my feet, and I just dropped my brush on him. Which doesn't like it when things fall down. At least it wasn't heavy. It's like, you did that on purpose. I can tell. Rather than just being clumsy. He's a little suspicious, too. I gave him a bath yesterday, so. Speaking of painters and eras, his name is Bosch. As in Hieronymus Bosch, Northern Renaissance painter of the Dam. Working on some story beats, working on writing really developing the characters. I've had a lot of avenues I've been kind of taken with them in order to convey who they are. And I think it'll be a compelling story. But it's about the concept project is basically, originally, so humans are settling on this planet after a multi-generational traversal through space, and they arrive on this planet that they believe is uninhabited. They arrive, and there's kind of evidence of a form of civilization, but they appear to be gone. So like there's artifacts, but there's no biological remains. There's no fossils. There's just kind of these strange structures scattered around this planet. The planet itself is very strange too. It's basically a giant tangle of massive branches, vines, kind of interlinked with each other, with forests and other things living, inhabiting, sitting on top of them. And anyway, they settle. But there's a whole thing where they can't leave the planet. They're stuck there, like they can't go back into space. Something happened when they arrived. So the story I've been working on lately has been one that's set like 80 years afterward. It's about a guy who's going out to investigate a crashed colony ship from the original arrival that they've recently figured out kind of generally where it's at, and he has to go out and see what resources are there, because they're having trouble adapting to consuming the local plants and everything like that. And so they're kind of in a tough situation, and he's going to go out, investigate it, and send back the information about the ship. And to a certain degree, it's a one-way trip because they only have enough resources to send him out, but he has to kind of find stuff there in order to come back. So if he doesn't make it back, it just means like it's not really something they can use. So and the story is about him going out, what he's left behind. So he's got a wife and a little homestead. And 4 of these now. What is the 26? And so it's about that. I have another one too that's set much later, but I thought I would start with this story first. All right. Yeah. So for me, what I've been doing is I've learned about the what's called the Dan Harmon Story Circle. There's a whole bunch of YouTubes about it that kind of show how it works. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I can show it off. I've got a little bit of time here. That way my table's on up at an angle, actually. So I use magnets to hold my stuff in. But the let's see, where's so this is pretty good. So basically, the Dan Harmon story circle is really great for any kind of episodic or ongoing storytelling, but has basically 8 steps. So there's you need. I guess I have to back it up a little bit for you. There we go. You need go search find take return change. So you can have this actually the circle happen multiple times in a story, but you can also set up so the overall story is dealing with this to a certain degree. There's this here, so we've got order, chaos. Anyway, it's made popular by Dan Harmon. He's the one who did was it a Rick and Morty show. There's other things to write too, of course. How well you write, how you write dialogue and things like that. But if you can get like a story that makes sense, that's really helpful. But you is basically your status quo, so where you're at the moment. That can be good or bad. Any of these can be good or bad. But you're living your life a certain way. And then so that's your status quo. There's something that's missing. And that can be an external, something that's missing, like you need food. Good morning. We're talking about story structure. Like you need something to eat. So like in this case, my story here is like there's this colony, they're having trouble, there's corruption, there's resource issues that they're having. There's some other things too that I don't want to go into here, but they have all these problems, and so that's their general situation. So they need, and there's a need for this guy to go out and go find resources and justify his membership and survival in the colony. So he crosses the threshold to go out to do this. So he leaves by himself to go to go find these resources. And so he crosses the threshold. So there's status quo, something isn't right, cross the threshold. Or it's like, when Luke Skywalker decides to go with Obi-Wan, right? To leave the planet. And so in the process of searching for whatever it is that they need, they run into a lot of problems. And this is usually called the road of trials. So all the problems that they run into. So in my case, there's natural problems, there's technological problems he's going to run into while he's out searching. And then eventually you find the thing that you need. And again, it could be an internal or an external, it could be psychological, it could be physical, it could be a mix of different things, but eventually you find it. And then, this is called Meet the Goddess, by the way. Meet the Goddess. And then you take it. And taking is actually paying the price, because when you finally get what you want, it costs you everything. It costs you a lot of stuff. It's a painful process in terms of taking. And then once you have it, what you find, you start going back to where you were before, and then you change. And change is master of both worlds. Basically, you're showing how what you've taken or how your need has changed. You can see how kind of there are the opposites of search and take, return, go, need, change. Usually the bottom part's this era of chaos. So like in Star Wars, there's Luke Skywalker, he's living a peaceful life, he doesn't know that he's secretly the son of Darth Vader, which George Lucas didn't know either when he made the movie, so they made that up later. He has a need for adventure to prove himself, but he can't do any of that where he's at, right? There's also the problem with the Empire oppressing everything and nobody likes it, but what do you do? And so when his aunt and uncle get killed, he decides to go. That's the impetus for him to go. And go with Obi-Wan to find the princess, rescue the princess. Uh, and in the process of searching for the princess, they run into all kinds of problems, right? They get the tractor beam thing, they're being hunted in Mos Eisley, get chased by the ship in the sky. Obi-Wan's sneaking around. They're trying to get the princess. They're all looking for all these different things. They're running into all these problems. So it's worth trials. And then they find what they're looking for. So Luke Skywalker finds the princess, and they decide to take her. So they take her away, but in the process of taking her, they lose Obi-Wan. And they also are being tracked, which if she'd known, she should have taken them somewhere else, but they're being tracked by the Empire, which also puts their entire rebellion at risk. And so they arrive there, he's got what he's taken, that's the return, so he's in kind of the same person going into a new situation, and then when he goes and defeats blows up the ship with the stuff that he's taken, the data, the girl, everything, all those things that he's taken, they allow him to demonstrate, to successfully blow up the Death Star. And then that leads into a new status quo where he's a hero in the rebellion and all of that. So it's a way of kind of telling stories, and you can even go within a single scene or a set of scenes within a movie. You can say, oh, he's going from here to here to here to here to here to here, so on. It's like the beginning of the movie. He's getting the farmer kid who's got all these chores he has to do, but they need help, and so they buy the droids, right? And then in the process of repairing the droids, they go through all these problems where R2-D2 takes off, and they have to go find him, and they run into all those monsters out in what are those guys? The sand people out in the desert. This is where they meet Obi-Wan, and then in that process, he finds out, in meeting Obi-Wan, who he's heard about but never met, he's given information about who he really is and what's going on, and they discover who meets the princess in the video thing. And in this case, what he finds, he actually rejects it initially, right? And in rejecting it, he discovers that his aunt and uncle have been killed, which causes him to go back to Obi-Wan, and then he gets kind of demonstrated in that process of working with Obi-Wan at the very beginning of the movie that he's capable of certain things in this kind of new reality he's in. So you can have it be like the whole story. You've got the whole long story going on, for the whole movie, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. You can, split the movie up into the different acts, 1, 2, and 3. You can actually go through the circle in each of these, and then there can be specific things going on within them that also use these circles. And it kind of rolls the movie forward like on a wheel, kind of to a certain degree for a story. So it's an interesting kind of framework for telling a story. And I've been kind of paying attention to it as I watch media, so I've been rewatching the old Samurai Jack show. You can watch that literally happen. So there's Samurai Jack walking in the woods, and he breaks his shoe. So as a result of that, he needs a new shoe, right? Or something, a bunch of people in motorcycles run over his shoe. So he goes into the city, and he's tries on a bunch of shoes at this shoe store, and they all work wrong. And then he sees this kid wearing the same kind of shoe he wears, the same sandal he wears. So he discovers that, and he goes and he meets this family, and they make a shoe for him. So he takes that and makes him have to give up on the other options he was trying out, uh, and then he returns to the battle with these guys on the motorcycles, and then he demonstrates kind of his new abilities as a result of getting back to his original shoot. So you kind of move from this kind of ordered area where you have a lot of control to an area of chaos. But anyway, I've been paying attention to a lot of stuff lately just so I can spot it. So it doesn't always happen in the exact order, or they don't always spend the same amount of time in different areas. But it's definitely given me a lot of food for thought for kind of structuring a story. And you can see it happen all the time. Just kind of pay attention. I memorize these two, so I know what they are, which makes it easier. So I'm watching like a short Samurai Jack episode, 20-ish minutes or so. I'm like, oh, here's what is going on. This is the need that comes up. You can watch him decide to cross that threshold, to go search for what he's looking for, and he usually runs into a lot of trials. They spend a lot of time here in the Samurai Jack episode. In fact, they tend to spend a lot of time in this area right here. All the problems people run into. That's where the action happens usually, until he finds what he's looking for. And then, I guess one where when he found the dragon he was looking for, he had to be eaten by the dragon. In order to figure out what's going on. I actually spent a lot of time here while he's running around the belly of the dragon looking for the source of its gastrointestinal issue. And then comes back out, he returns with what he's taken, and it changes him and the city that he was encountering. So, anyway, it's called the Dan Harmon Story Circle. And if you're not familiar with it, it's worth checking out. So Dan. There's lots of examples on YouTube where they break down movies, kind of show how the events of the movie move through this. There's different ones out there. There's just the 3-act structure. You have like a rising action, denouement, things like that. But I thought this is kind of more kind of helps identify. So as you're going through and trying to explain, you kind of know who your character is, and then something that they need, and then they go and maybe come up with a scene that they work with, and they can search through that scene or creatures or other characters or other problems generated for them until they get to these states. They find what they need, and then they can take it. Like in The Sixth Sense, right? So there's this guy. He's sad because his wife doesn't talk to him anymore, and so he needs that. And so in the process that he meets this kid that he can talk to, and he decides to help. By helping this kid, it might help his relationship with his wife. And so he goes through all these problems with this kid in order to figure out how he can help his wife. And then there's a point where we go back and we meet. He's talking to her. But in the process of this whole process of going through this search and then finding what he's looking for, in the process of talking to her, he discovers that he's dead, right? That he can no longer actually talk to his wife. That he'll never see, she'll never see him again, at least while she's still alive. That he literally can't do anything about their relationship anymore. It's all gone. That's the price that he has to pay. Then that allows him to walk out of there, recognizing who he is and what's going on. He returns back to what he was doing before, and then in the process of that new knowledge and information and experience, he changes and moves on with his existence. So it happens in a lot of stories, and you kind of see it going on pretty often. So, but again, for me, it's been very, very helpful as a way of kind of charting out the stories I've been writing. And so I have like a big overarching story I'd like to tell, and so that allows me to set up specific kinds of beats within it, and And then if I break that into X number of issues, I can say, oh, well, at the beginning of the issue, this is where he is, this is the need, this is what he has to do, this is the problems he's running into, even though maybe the whole, maybe the search part is broken into 3 issues. So he's going through all these trials, but you can still put him through all these steps within there and kind of roll that story forward. So you can have multiple, like I said, like 3 issues of whatever thing going through the road of trials until he finds the overall thing. And so it makes the story way more kind of interesting. And then there's other characters that I wanted to talk about going on. They can also do all of these things too. So anyway, that's my lecture for this morning. I'm going to call it a morning study, and I got stuff to do today. More chores, and then some work this afternoon. But yeah, thanks for coming in. We'll talk to everybody later.